Good evening. This is Maestro Critello with a Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite Modcast. Today, we have a 1v1 on Outer Reaches. Our first player today is Paranoid Cammy, playing as the Force Commander. The Force Commander is a tanky melee hero. He can just absorb damage, deal a lot of damage of his own. He's good for tying things up. He can punch vehicles with a Power Fist later on, disrupt melee units with his Thunder Hammer, or really any of his weapons, but he's best at doing it with his Thunder Hammer. His opponent is Flaming, playing as the Chaos Lord. This is also a tanky melee hero, however, this one wears Terminator armor, so he cannot be knocked down or suppressed. He is, however, a little bit slower. He doesn't do quite as much melee damage to start out as the Force Commander, but he does do some range damage as well, and he can definitely be upgraded to do a lot of melee damage later on. Generally a very strong hero. Yeah. Alright, so this game right here, I'm pretty excited about it. Paranoid Cammy is a very dedicated Force Commander player, and he's extremely good. In a way, he definitely doesn't get the kind of like limelight that players like Tex and Toy Lali do as far as high-level 1v1 players, even though he really is up there. But I think he's just generally not as much in the spotlight. A big part of that is that he, for some reason, does not play in tournaments. He also doesn't really play team games, 2v2 or 3v3, pretty much at all. And it's also curious that he doesn't enter tournaments at all, even though he's at the level where he could be a serious contender for a tournament. I have a feeling that if he entered a tournament, he probably wouldn't win. But we could definitely see him like in the finals or the semifinals against a player like Tex or Noisy or Toy Lali, because he really is that good. And the Force Commander is not, to be honest, not one of my favorite heroes, even though I can play him a little bit. I just don't find him to be the most interesting hero in the game, since he tends to be a little simpler and more straightforward. I like heroes that are a little more nuanced and sophisticated, like the Sorcerer and the Warlock. But I am just very interested in seeing this because Paranoid pretty much just mains the Force Commander, plays him exclusively, and he's extremely proficient with this hero. So, and I'm always definitely very interested in seeing extremely high-level proficient play. Flaming is someone who I don't really know as well. I don't think he's as well known as even Paranoid Cammy. And my impression is that he's not as good of a player as someone like Paranoid, but I shouldn't be too biased here. This is a long game that we have ahead of us, and I actually really don't know who the winner is. But either way, Flaming's not quite as well known to me, and probably not as well known to other players as well, but I've seen him in a few casts, and he's definitely good at casts as well as replays. He's playing a very strong hero in the Chaos Lord, also not exactly one of my favorite heroes. If you notice, I'm just not really feeling the tanky melee heroes as far as like playing them and stuff, and just don't find them to be the most interesting heroes. But he's probably pretty good with that hero, and we definitely know that the Chaos Lord is a very capable hero who can, very competitively viable, can definitely win any matchup that he wants. But anyway, we've got very similar builds for both players. They've both gone for two of the starting squad, double scouts, double heretics. They've both got their basic range squad, the Chaos Space Marines and the Tactical Marines, and they've both got a suppression team. So somewhat mirror builds, although heretics and scouts are very, very different from each other. Now, between their builds, of course, since Paranoid is playing Space Marines, he's got those extra scouts, and Tacs are actually better than Chaos Space Marines at doing range damage, except for the fact that these Chaos Space Marines have Eternal War. Paranoid Cammy's got more range fire, better focus fire, so he should be better at focusing down Flaming's tanky melee hero. What Flaming has are the heretics, so he's got two of those melee units. He's got more early model killing potential and more early squad wiping potential. and also just potentially more power to be aggressive, especially because he can use his heretics either as melee units to attack, or he can use them for their worship effect, which will increase the speed of any squads in the area of the worship. Most commonly done with the Chaos Lord, although it's definitely done with really any Chaos squad. Generally considered the best kind of worship. And it's very, very powerful, either for putting on pressure, sometimes for getting things out of situations, out of bad situations when they might otherwise die. So far, economically, things seem to be pretty even, with Paranoid going to tier 2, slightly ahead of Flaming, but he's not far behind, and it doesn't look like either player has really done much of a gen bash. I think I missed a little bit of a generator bash happening over here, but I don't think really too much happened. Paranoid now seems to be winning on the map control. The map is mostly gone blue, in fact. But Flaming has also noted the contested power, which is sometimes a good choice. Now, what's good about this is that that's either going to really... Paranoid would have to either commit a lot of time to taking out this power node, because it would take a lot of time for any of his squads to destroy it, or he would might want to get a Flamer upgrade, which would allow his tax to bash that power point much more efficiently, but Paranoid might not necessarily want to get that Flamer upgrade. That might not be what he wants for his tax. It might not actually be the best choice, and it's going to cost him some resources. Anyway, Havoc's right here getting suppressed, so they're not able to really do much of their own. The Scouts were running in. I'm not sure why the Scouts were actually running in, though, since Scouts actually lose to Havocs in melee. They don't want to melee Havocs, believe it or not. So it looks like Flaming took an early lead in VPs. He's actually got a VP lead of over 100. But ever since, at least for what I've been paying attention to for the past 2 minutes, it really looks like Paranoid's had the map control. He's had most of the actual points on the map, and Flaming's, of course, he's just had... The good thing for him is that he's had this contested power, which, again... Paranoid is either going to have to commit time or some kind of extra resources. We've got some moonwalking tactical marines actually deciding to melee down the power node. That might actually do more damage than fighting it in range. And part of what Flaming is actually doing sometimes is that he's actually engaging near that power node, so that Paranoid actually doesn't have that much of an opportunity to bash that power node. He's like running his heretics over here, and then that draws the tactical marines away. They actually stop trying to bash the power node a little bit because they want to engage the heretics. Now at this point it looks like Flaming has given up this power node. This power node will probably get destroyed unless some Bloodletters decide to teleport into those tactical marines, which I actually think would be the best choice for the Bloodletters to do right now. Tactical marines really are not going to fare that well against Bloodletters in melee, but it doesn't look like that's what he's choosing to do. Maybe just choosing to concede that power and win the engagements up top. And the Devastator Marines actually have been doing pretty well for Paranoid. Paranoid, I would say, has been doing better with his suppression team than Flaming has. Flaming's has more often been forced off. In this case, we did see the Devastators get forced off by a Chaos Lord that had flanked it. Now we've got tier 2 purchases out for both players. We've got the Bloodletters from Flaming and the Dreadnought from Paranoid. And I'd say this configuration of tier 2 purchases kind of favors Paranoid. Since Flaming got Bloodletters, and those are something that are going to get countered by the Dreadnought, while not really being effective for dealing with the Dreadnought. And part of the advantage that he had there was that Flaming decided to take the initiative to get Bloodletters without knowing what Paranoid would get, whereas Paranoid was more reactive. He got the Dreadnought after the Bloodletters came out. And I don't remember if he actually started it before or after he saw the Bloodletters, but either way, he got it after. It is kind of a reactionary purchase because it's a purchase that counters what Flaming got. Flaming just blindly got the Bloodletters, and I mean, it's not that bad of a choice. In fact, it's really hard to say that Bloodletters are a bad choice because they are such an extremely good unit. Pretty much the only thing that makes them a bad choice at all is the fact that you're committing to a non-AV unit at a time when getting AV might be your priority. Flaming right now has pretty minimal AV. He has not upgraded his Havoc to a las cannon or an autocannon. Instead, he's chosen to get Plague Marines. Now, we do see that the Bloodletters are nevertheless going for the Dreadnought and doing some very light damage, but it's really not enough by itself. The Dreadnought is isolated, but that being said, right now there's still not really enough, I think, to deal with a Dreadnought, especially if Paranoid actually gets some support over here. If he actually gets some support for these Plague Marines, the Dreadnought should be fine, although we do see some use of Heretic Worship to have the Plague Marines run away so that they could get another missile shot off, which is, again, just another great thing about that Khorne Worship. Dreadnought now actually is in a bit of trouble. It really has gone a while without, and you know what? One more missile shot should do it, and that's actually going to be the end of that Dreadnought. So that was actually extremely well played by Flaming. He did lose his Havoc in the process, but losing a Havoc to take out a Dreadnought is definitely worth it. With that being said, are the Plague Marines going to go down? I think if the Devastator Marines had not gotten tied up by the Bloodletters, I think those Plague Marines would have gotten down. Wow, as it is, Devastator Marines were themselves in a bit of trouble. We're gonna see one of those Bloodletter models go down as well. And now the Chaos Lord is in a ton of trouble. That Chaos Lord, if he did not use that Sweeping Doom, he might be dead anyway. Just one more hit from the Power Fist will finish off the Chaos Lord. So now things are really starting to happen. I felt we had a kind of an uneventful Tier 1, but Tier 2, things definitely heated up a bit. The Force Commander, with that Power Fist, it's such a great weapon, in part because it attacks so slowly, but that means he does a huge amount of damage in a single hit. So he really takes out chunks of health with each swing. Very, very good for picking models off of squads like Chaos Space Marines or Tactical Marines. Also very good for sniping heroes in the way that we saw it. Because you can have a hero where it looks like he's got more than enough health to get away on retreat, but that Power Fist just does so much damage in a single hit that could actually finish off your hero. Very, very good for killing heroes, I'd say. The Force Commander, one of the best ways to kill a hero on retreat. I think we even saw Paranoid use For the Emperor on his Force Commander to just further increase the damage. He's also got the Armor of Alacrity, which is the less common armor purchase for the Force Commander, but it helps even more for the thing that I just said, because it passively increases his speed by 0.5, and you even get the Sprint ability, which is an active ability that increases speed, I believe, by another 2. So you would actually have a Force Commander with speed 7.5 once he uses that ability. Anyway, Devastators here actually have Vengeance rounds, and man, you know, I thought like Flaming had they seemed pretty even economically at first, but Paranoid is now all the way into Tier 3 with a massive amount of resources. He is probably planning to get Terminators, maybe, I'm not sure. He's definitely going for something big. If not Terminators, it would be a Land Raider, because anything else he would already have the resources to afford. And he's short on power to get a Land Raider and short on red to get any kind of Terminator. Bloodletters, meanwhile, just idling by this point. Things are now starting to look better for Paranoid, even though he does have a deficit in VP, still over 100 VP deficit. And Paranoid has also been very, very sparse on upgrades. I mean, I was wondering how he did so well on his resources. He's got Devastator Marines. They only have advanced targeting. If we notice, he's got no upgrades whatsoever on his scouts or his tacs, and that's something he did not get any shotguns, even though there were Bloodletters, even though there were Heretics, even though there was a Chaos Lord. And shotguns are actually a good choice against a Chaos Lord because they're very good at kiting and focus firing the Chaos Lord. Because the Chaos Lord is trying to close in for melee, so naturally he's going to get very close. Scout shotguns do a lot of damage the closer you get to them, and when you actually get really close to the Scout shotguns, they do a ton of damage. I think at close range, shotgun scouts will be doing more damage than tactical marines, especially if you've got 4 scout models. But this is definitely something that you definitely see it mostly among higher level players, where they will actually forego weapon upgrades on their scouts to actually save those resources. Mostly just use the scouts for kiting and map control. Now, Paranoid has actually chosen to get a Vanguard veteran purchase. That's very interesting. He bought Assault Space Marines in Tier 3 and then immediately chose to upgrade them to Vanguard veterans. Things are now actually starting to look pretty bad for Paranoid in this particular engagement. He's got Bloodletters chasing down Devastator Marines. Those Devastators can't afford to stay in there too long. That actually should be the wipe on the Devastator Marines. They need to... Oh, Paranoid... I think he's going to get lucky with this last Devastator model. But that was a risky engagement. He also lost a bunch of scout models as well, so he definitely bled from that engagement. Now we've got the Vanguard veterans, rather, jumping in, and it's actually quite amazing, again, because Paranoid's not getting any shotguns that he can actually use for melee disruption, which is... It's almost somewhat bizarre, but high-level players actually have a way of making that work with Space Marines, and I used to see it from Dark Riku. I don't think he does it quite as much, and for some reason, those Chaos Space Marines just died. I mean, 2 Vanguard models go down, and that's going to be pretty costly for Paranoid to replace, but 2 Vanguard models to take out a squad of Tzeentch Chaos Space Marines is worth it. Flaming, I don't like... That, unfortunately, was definitely a mistake below his skill level. I mean, for as good of a player as he is, he should not have lost his Chaos Space Marines there, I think. Just not leave them in against Vanguards like that. I mean, he probably thought that he had the Bloodletters in there to protect them, but that ultimately obviously wasn't enough, and I think it was just too much of a risk. But anyway, we've got Terminators now. We've actually got ranged Terminators, so he's opting not to get the Assault Terminators, the Terminators unique to the Force Commander. But there are definitely some good reasons for that. He's already committed to an elite melee unit in the form of the Vanguard veterans. And ranged Terminators are really good, just even for the Force Commander, even though you have that option of getting the melee Terminators. Sometimes it's not like just a straight, just get Assault Terminators because the Force Commander can get them and the other Space Marine heroes can get. There are times when ranged Terminators are the better choice. And part of what ranged Terminators are going to do, first of all, they're going to really, really devastate the Heretics. And that might not seem like such a big deal, but if Heretics are worshipping, that is doing a lot to support the Bloodletters. You also just get that speed. The Terminators can very, very quickly start killing those Heretic models and pressure them into unworshipping, which then leaves the Bloodletters with much less support and basically much less threatening because they won't be regenerating their health. It also makes the Chaos Lord a lot less threatening since he won't be as fast. Now, Flaming, again, he's obviously had the better end of map control in terms of VPs. He's still got the VP lead. I think he's had the VP lead for the entire game. Lately, definitely in the actual flow of battle in the past few engagements, things have been favoring Paranoid. He certainly had a few dangerous situations. Probably the biggest loss for Paranoid was just when he lost his Dreadnought, but I'd say ever since then, things have mostly been going Paranoid's way and not going Flaming's way as much.
I can withstand this.
Paranoid actually now being very oppressive with map control, using his scouts to capture points, and it actually, on the resource side of things, it actually has looked like Paranoid has always had the edge there, and that might be why he's doing so much better on resources. Vanguard veterans right here jumped into melee combat, and he put For the Emperor on them to help them beat the Bloodletters. So that made, because otherwise Vanguard veterans versus Bloodletters, that would be kind of an iffy engagement. It would probably be a bit of a toss-up, but Paranoid did a few things to make that engagement go in his favor. He had the Vanguards jump on the Bloodletters to disrupt them, and of course he also used For the Emperor to increase the damage of the Vanguards. We've now got a Predator tank out for Flaming. Right now it's just a vanilla Predator tank with no mark. It's still very good, even in its vanilla form, very functional. And sometimes it's actually good just to leave Predators in their vanilla form so that you can focus on getting out another unit. Sometimes, I actually personally believe getting 2 unupgraded tanks is better than having just 1 fully upgraded tank. Now, the Mark of Nurgle is an interesting upgrade choice. It's changed a lot in the Elite mod compared to how it was in Retail, and it's still definitely the least commonly purchased Mark for the Chaos Predator. Now, what's new for the Mark of Nurgle Predator? It has melee resistance, it has health regeneration, and it has a different kind of cannon. It shoots out like basically like Nurgle shells or bile shells. They don't do as much explosive damage, so this is definitely a reduction in the AV capabilities of the tank. If you go for the Mark of Nurgle, it can still do some damage because it's still explosive damage, which is for dealing with vehicles. But it also does damage over time, flame damage over time, and presumably in an area, but either way, just whatever it hits, it does damage over time. Oh, and of course the Nurgle Predator goes slower, which is just another reason why it's a less commonly purchased. It's just less commonly purchased, because generally one of the great advantages of tanks are their speed, and now we've got a tank that actually goes slower than dreadnoughts. I'm actually well, it's going to be extremely vulnerable now to the Force Commander, mostly because it's going to have a lot of trouble dodging flesh over steel, although it will be better at surviving if it does get hit by flesh over steel. And we've actually got a lot of AV coming out from Paranoid. He does have a Terminator. They have Power Fist. We've got some Vanguard veterans. They can do some light damage. We've got the Force Commander, of course, and we've got a missile attack. We even have a Corn Trine, and it doesn't actually look like Paranoid is able to get a flesh over steel off. The Flaming just kept microing his tank, and I guess one of the ways he was able to compensate for the weakness of the Nurgle Predator's speed is by using Corn Worship, and it's Corn Worship, I think, is generally considered the best worship, in part because it compensates for a lot of Chaos's weaknesses, and where Chaos is strong, it just kind of makes them even stronger. So it's just hard to go wrong with that Corn Worship. And then, well, Tzeentch Worship is generally considered second best, while Nurgle Worship is generally considered the worst of the worships. Bloodlurch needs to get out of here. Flaming is now really struggling, and he's getting a little bit desperate. Despite all of the early advantages that he had, things are now starting to really go in Paranoid's favor. Flaming did not do very well in that engagement. He managed to keep his squads alive, but he definitely bled 2 Bloodletter models, I feel, somewhat unnecessarily. I think he kept them in there a little too long. And perhaps more importantly, Flaming is now having a lot of trouble keeping up on map control. We've got level 3 Bolter Scouts with no upgrades whatsoever, and another squad of level 3 Bolter Scouts. So, I mean, that's pretty amazing. They must be bleeding a lot of Heretic models. I haven't even been paying attention that much to what the Scouts have been doing. I imagine a lot of backcapping. The map control is actually, aside from the fact that Flaming he had a VP lead at the start, the map control otherwise has seemed like it has pretty much always favored Paranoid, the exception just being the VPs. But as far as the resource points, it always looks like Paranoid pretty much had all of the middle VPs. Not all the middle VPs, all of the middle resource points. Just a requisition here, the power, etc. The Force Commander is actually doing it pretty amazingly, just walking into entire blobs. He does also have the Sacred Standard, which increases the damage of allies around him. I don't think it actually increases his damage, so having the Force Commander just run around solo is not the best use of that war gear, but he's still tanky enough that he was still doing very well with that. VP is now very, very low for Flaming, despite his early VP lead, when I believe he had a lead of like over 200. Now it's 174 to 19 in favor of Paranoid, with Flaming finally getting the VPs back for the first time in a while. Paranoid's floating resources amazingly, and he really does not have anything to do with it, to be honest, because he's totally pop-capped. Meanwhile, Flaming has an excess of power, not a whole lot of requisition. He's got population, not enough requisition to really buy any kind of tier 3 unit. Although, he should be able to get enough resources soon to get out something. Maybe another tank. He could get out, well, he has the population for a super unit, but it's going to be tough to afford that. You know what? If anything, given how little time he has left, I actually think he should get some kind of different squad out on the field. Some kind of cheap squad. Maybe, like, I'm actually going to suggest, like, maybe even a new squad of heretics. Maybe another squad of bloodletters. Maybe another Chaos Space Marine squad. He doesn't have Chaos Space Marine squads, and Chaos Space Marines are actually really good, and they actually... Oh, but there's an Imperial Abyss! What a good idea. Yeah, that was such a good idea because of the fact that Imperial Abysses are very good for denying VPs in the late game. They're, to be honest, not so good as actual nukes, and people are definitely going to disagree with me on that. They can sometimes do they can sometimes do a lot of damage and kill a lot of things, but they're generally the least reliable nuke at the moment. Aside from maybe, well, there is also the Tyrannoformation, and those are, in my opinion, the two weakest nukes.
The enemy engages us in close assault. We are losing the position point to the enemy.
Oh, but instead we actually have some Chaos Terminators. That's actually not a bad purchase at all. I actually feel, yeah, you know, that's actually a very good purchase. I was going to say Chaos Space Marines because Chaos Space Marines actually scale very well into Tier 3 because they're really good against pretty much everything except for vehicles. But, I mean, especially like these infantry squads. Terminators are very good against, very good for dealing with a Force Commander, good for dealing with TACs. And of course, I mean, Chaos Space Marines, well, they need some kind of mark upgrade. In this case, I think the Mark of Tzeentch would be better, as it usually is. That being said, usually the Chaos Terminators actually fulfill very similar roles to the Chaos Space Marines. So they're kind of a good Tier 3 replacement if you can actually afford them. And they're actually more versatile because they can actually be a significant threat to vehicles. They're actually slightly worse than Chaos Space Marines for damaging heavy infantry and super heavy infantry. But sometimes it's worth it for that extra versatility, and they also have the advantage of being much tougher, which is also an advantage. Anyway, wow, Vanguard veterans walked straight into some Bloodletters. Bloodletters, meanwhile, level 4. That's absolutely vicious. The damage they're going to be doing at level 4 is amazing. Vanguard veterans get out of there with only one model. Lucky for Paranoid, he really does not have to worry that much about reinforcement costs. He's floating resources madly. He's just got so much resources. We actually now have infiltrated scouts going for a back half, and we've got some worshipping heretics right here, and they detected those scouts. Flaming needs to pay attention, though. He needs the awareness. He needs that awareness to unworship his heretics and have them attack the scouts. The scouts really can't do anything about those heretics, but unfortunately, Flaming just has his attention elsewhere, so he's not stopping those heretics. He does get it in time, though. But he could have done it much, much earlier. Doom Blast, please! Because then the scouts just have to retreat instead of just running away. Man, I think he needed an earlier Doom Blast there, and now I actually feel he should give up the chase with these heretics so that he can get those heretics back on the VP. Instead, he's going really, really hard. I feel like Flaming's going too hard. Hold the VPs. I think a little too desperate to kill a scout squad, and I don't think going after that scout squad is quite that worth it. What he really needs is getting the VPs, because he wants to put the VP pressure back on Paranoid, make it even. And he's doing very well, but now the Force Commander's about to get on the VP. The Chaos Lord needs to get over there and stop the Force Commander. It hurts so much. Alright, he's going to use Sweeping Doom. He better use Sweeping Doom. Does he not have the energy to use Sweeping Doom? Or he's just going to go straight up for killing the Force Commander. Gets him off the point. Alright, Force Commander now is actually going to go down. No! He's not going to go down because he's going to use Sprint just to run away. And Flaming is unfortunately... Oh my god, that is such a good play.
We are suffering heavy losses.
My god. He's actually keeping the Force Commander in play with no health. Force Commander is going to go for the Predator tank, might even take it out. The Force Commander might even go down, but Paranoid has so much health that he might even be able to keep him alive. Force Commander actually does go down, though. But I think Flaming is getting way too distracted. He's fighting too much and not actually getting VPs. Oh. Alright, now Flaming is in trouble. Tax actually get the decap off, and they do it just tanking the damage. Flaming now finally puts his Chaos Lord on the point, but I don't think he'll be able to, will he be able to stop the Tactical Marines from getting the point over here. Unfortunately, Plague Marines really don't do much damage in melee combat. Although Paranoid actually gets scared and he does actually just retreat them out of there. I actually feel like they might have been able to tough it out, might have been able to give their lives, or Paranoid could have even used a drop pod over here to seal it. That being said, he's got plenty of squads over here, actually choosing to stop firing to go after the Predator tank. That being said, the Predator tank is now getting repairs, and the Plague Marine's not going to get out of there alive, and that was, again, a situation where I don't think it was worth it for Flaming. Chose to engage again when I think he should have just captured the point. Because I think his Plague Marines would have finished the cap, but I knew there was no way they were going to destroy that Predator, not with repair support.
One of our own has died.
And Flaming, his Chaos Lord, is kind of lacking health and needs to put that Demon Shield up, or needs to go over there. Uses another Imperial Abyss. Very well done. Can he finish off that scout this time? Alright, he's going to get the Bloodletters over there. That's going to deny the VP again. Nearly kills the Force Commander. Oh no! Again, that's focusing too much on engaging. Needs to go... Oh no, and that's it. Unfortunately, that was the wrong move. Should have gone for the Force Commander. So that was a very close game. And, I mean, Flaming was doing a pretty good job to bring it back, but he, unfortunately, I mean... And I feel bad about criticizing someone this much when he definitely played very well in the sense that he's playing against an extremely tough opponent. But unfortunately, his late-game decisions were definitely... He definitely made some misguided late-game decisions, chose to engage way too much and did not prioritize capturing enough, and in part did not realize when it was better to capture and when it was better to engage. The Force Commander play, again, from Paranoid, very, very interesting things that we saw from him. A very high-level player, especially keeping the Force Commander in play with no health, but having him use the energy shield and just kiting around. Definitely some things here that we would not see from most other Force Commander players. Alright, hope you enjoyed the cast. Have a good night.